Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Maqbool with you at PTV World. In today's show, we're going to take a look at two important topics. The first is in reference to Pakistan's war against terrorism that unfortunately continues, and we've seen a surge in activities, particularly in KP and Balochistan, since the U.S. troop patrol in Afghanistan, and of course in the ways which we see safe havens being provided in Afghanistan, from where we've seen terrorist activities also happen within the country. At the same time, of course, we have been dealing with the issue of terrorism for quite some time, with the National Action Plan also being decided and put forward. However, what we need to do in terms of its implementation or re-evaluation still remains to be seen. Most recent attacks, of course, include the motorcycle blast in Kuzdar, and then, of course, the ways in which we have seen the security forces thwart the attempt in Bannu district of KP, with, of course, condemnation with regards to the attacks and how the terrorists were foiled. But at the same time, of course, we know that while the resolve and the preparedness of our security forces and armed personnel is there is a need to take a look at the larger perspective of our fight against terrorism and what needs to be done about it, both, of course, within Pakistan and the region, and also with the relationship that we have with other international partners in this regard. We've just seen the U.S. administration also praising Pakistan for the support that has been given in arresting the terrorist, in terms of the ways in which we saw this entire episode and investigation take place with the Abbey Gate bombing, and of course something that is a very, very serious attack on U.S. citizens back in 2021. And this is, of course, something that Mr. Trump has also said and has praised Pakistan for in terms of its support and assistance, which, of course, has enabled the person behind these terrorist attacks to be arrested. And so we need, of course, ways forward in which how this collaboration can also mean the kind of actions that Pakistan needs to protect its own land as well, and of course the kind of threats that emanate from within its region. That is going to be our focus in the first segment of the show. Our next one is going to take a look at the ways in which we have seen the U.S. Move forward with increase on tariffs, and of course the ways that has impacted its relations with other countries and the economies, and the ways in which we are now going to be seeing how different countries are reacting and what is going to be the next steps. We've seen, of course, this also impacting China while these tariffs have been imposed on Chinese goods. We have seen that has happened previously with an increase on tariffs again that has been seen most recently, and of course we've seen the Chinese side responding to the fact and saying that this is something that they don't really need to rely on the U.S. for, and that this is something that they will go right towards the end for in terms of the trade war. And so what that means in terms of the impact that can be created while we see a certain countermeasure being taken on U.S. agricultural products, whether or not it's actually going to be able to balance out the impact it creates on China, and what will be the next moves for countries like China in terms of such policies by the U.S., of course, remains to be seen and will be the focus of our discussion. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analysts Farrukh, Pitafi and Faisal. We've also been joined online for our first segment for our fight against terrorism by Brigadier Mr. Waqar. Thank you very much for joining us and being a part of the discussion. And I'll start with you, Waqar Sahab, in terms of the ways we have seen over the years the evolution of our war against terrorism. I want your take in terms of where we stand today, particularly in the aftermath of the U.S. troop withdrawal and the Afghan Taliban regime in place, and with, of course, the UN also putting forward the report of what kind of threats Pakistan is facing emanating from Afghanistan. I want your take in terms of what that means then, while all of this is happening, and while we see the U.S. president actually praising Pakistan for its assistance, what then does that mean in terms of the ways in which Pakistan can actually also counter this threat for our own land?
I think start with the arrest of Sharifullah, who was number 3 in the ISIS chain of command, and he was the one who masterminded the attack on U.S. troops as well as Afghan innocent people, which killed, I think, more than 150 people, including 13 U.S. Military personnel. So this was one significant development recently, I think 10 days back, and today we have seen even Pete Hegseth in one of the, I think, talk shows from a U.S. media praising Pakistan for that. Trump did it in the basically joint session of the Congress, and I think very clearly mentioned the support provided by Pakistan. This is, I think, one, of course, important breaking news for today, as well as an important development in Pakistan-U.S. relations. Overall situation in Afghanistan, I'll just quickly go over it. Taliban are under serious pressure from within and without. Iran is building, a border fence and wall for billions of dollars to guard the 1,000-kilometer long border. China is also really worried. Then we have Central Asia. We have Daesh or ISIS now grouping to attack Central Asia, especially Tajikistan. Russia is worried, and Pakistan, of course, remains under attack. The only spoiler in the region is India, who try to, basically fish in the troubled water. So, all told, this is the external pressure from within Afghanistan to 20 million, women folks literally imprisoned, and now the northern lines, old northern lines, or the Afghan resistance front are coming up with attacks, and also division between the Taliban ranks, especially Haqqani and the Kandahari basically leadership, where Fatruddin Haqqani was taken out by one of maybe a terrorist from the other group. And then there was attack on Akoda Khatak, the Haqqaniya Madrasa, which is very symbolic. A lot of leadership of Afghanistan graduated from here. And probably there is a very clear tussle. So, all told, I foresee that probably one government, this regime is going to start melting by the end of the year because of internal external pressures. Highly isolated. Of course, Biden administration, I think, played the dual game of leaving, arsenal worth $7 billion and then feeding Taliban with 17 to 21 billion dollars, which I think Trump is now basically trying to save every dollar and is going to make the military establishment and the ex-Biden administration accountable for that. He also vowed to basically take back those weapon systems. Pakistan is determined. I think as Mr. Khan is in full swing. Of course, there are attacks taking place, but this is now a desperate fight from Kabul, the regime, because they are helping TTP, BLA, and Daesh. And within that, we've seen some of the serving officers from so-called Taliban academy, and one lieutenant colonel involved in attack inside Pakistan. So it means that now it's a direct fight, and there are no hold bars, and probably this year we'll see the end of this regime as well as end of terrorism in Pakistan, inshallah. But the way I think Pakistan army and the people fought in Bannu, this is commendable, and also whatever little I think support Taliban had in Pakistan is now vanished. Probably they've lost Pakistan for good, unless they went their ways, which seems very very difficult. If you hit the madrasas where you have Islamic students studying, or a mosque in Bannu where people were praying, so this is highly I think condemnable and totally un-Islamic. Basically, they become hired guns for anybody who feeds them dollars. They are ready to basically strike their, let's say, ex-supporters like Pakistan. So unfortunately for Taliban, I think this would be the last year in my assessment. And then you see so it means also that probably here the entire region and US and Pakistan can converge as far as the regime change in Afghanistan is concerned, because in case the resistance front for Afghanistan starts, exerting pressure, the women folks start coming out, because now there are a lot of calls for common public to rise against them, and the entire region is against them. Pakistan used to be their fallback position, no more. So I think they basically Taliban are on the losing side, and we'll soon see that there'll be serious division and then crumbling of the regime.
Right. And Faisal, I want your perspective on this too. While we talk about the huge number of course, terrorist incidents in Pakistan, and of course, the huge number of lives that have been lost defending the motherland, it's important, of course, to understand what our strategy is. And while we have the National Action Plan, because it's not just the armed forces who are dealing with as a first respondent to these attacks, and while, of course, we are very confident and, of course, very honored to have their resilience on ground, we, of course, also need in place a way forward in terms of our direction and in terms of institutions all across the board in all provinces, also in the political elements, to be on the same page with regards to this fight. And so I want your take on terms of when we had the National Action Plan and the consensus in terms of what we need to do to where we stand today. Have we actually been able to implement that in full letter and spirit? Are we on a point of consensus still today with regards to dealing with these terrorist threats? And if not, what needs to be done to change that?
Yes, and obviously when we talk about whatever is going on in terms of Pakistan actively fighting against the terrorism, that has been, of course, the case since almost more than 20 years. And if we, look at the situation on ground, of course, the resolve is the ultimate, and that is to bust them wherever they are originating from. And yes, right now they are originating from within Afghanistan, and we know that who are our adversaries, who are actually financing and facilitating all of these beasts out there who are carrying out all of these activities in Pakistan, and Pakistan is still fighting against it. When we talk about ISIS Khorasan, of course, ISIS Khorasan is not only a threat to Pakistan, but of course to the whole world. And yes, that is why we have just seen one of the examples of this, Muhammad Sharifullah, who's been captured by Pakistan's forces, and of course he's been handed over to the Americans because he was the mastermind behind that Abbey Gate, bombing that caused havoc out there. More than 170 people, Afghan people, they lost their lives, and plus, if we talk about the American Marines, of course, 14 of them, they lost their lives as well. And yes, America has had concerns related to it, and this too was a favor which is being extended by Pakistan to the Americans. And of course, Americans, I'm glad that they have thanked Pakistan for it. Otherwise, they are such thankless people that every time when they have to get out of the region, they simply get out of the region and they don't look back. And this was the time when Pakistan continuously was fighting against this menace. They should have been standing with Pakistan. They should have been, of course, backing Pakistan to eliminate this menace. Yet Pakistan is still fighting against it, and when it comes to the NATO forces or the rest of the countries, the Western countries, the ones who were supposed to be here, what we're hearing from them that the sort of support we were getting in terms of US aid, in terms of military support we were getting, they are simply claiming that we are going to put the cuts on and we are going to wrap up, and these kind of statements, of course, they are not favoring the environment in terms of fighting against the terrorism. Pakistan is fighting, and when it comes to Pakistan's internal problems, I just wanted to highlight the external bit first and then come towards the internal one. Yes, politically, of course, at this hour, of course, we know that one of the provinces, KPK, which is the pivotal province in terms of fighting against the terrorism, there is a government that has political gimmicks going on with the federal. That is part of any democratic country, and of course, Pakistan being a democratic country, one of the political parties is not aligned with the center, and that is why we are seeing. But to me, it's not a big challenge at all. We should simply ignore that, and we should carry on doing whatever we're doing. And the resolve, ultimate resolve, which is considered as an addition to Pakistan's ultimate war on terror, and that is that Pakistan conducted air raids within Afghanistan last year thrice, March, April and December. And I think the volume of that, the magnitude of that, it needs to be increased as soon as there is an intelligence of any of the miscreants out there or any of their training schools out there. I think that needs to be busted there and then, and there shouldn't be any shying away from that. And further down, of course, when we talk about the non-military side, when it comes to police, when it comes to rest of the law enforcing authorities, agencies within Pakistan, of course, they are playing a pivotal role. They are playing an excellent role. Of course, KP police, be it Punjab police, they have an excellent role to play, and the whole coordination they have with the military, of course, forces, that is excellent, and it needs to further be improved. In recent times, we have seen that there is another addition of utilizing the up-to-date technologies related to drones and related to for monitoring purposes. There are drones which are being used, and I think this is very good, especially when it comes to safeguarding the Durand line, safeguarding the international border between Pakistan and Afghanistan. There needs to be a permanent surveillance with the drones, and them drones should not only be providing with the footage, but of course they should be equipped with the grenades or with the adequate weaponry as well, so that wherever there are miscreants trying to cross in Pakistan or trying to do anything out there illegal, they should be fixed out there and then, so that it becomes a deterrence for all of these beasts. And whenever they think about crossing into Pakistan, they must always keep in their mind that the border is safeguarded at its best.
Right. And Farrukh, while we talk about the war against terrorism, you've always been of the viewpoint that it's the priority of Pakistan to protect its own citizens and to think about what's going on within our own borders, and that's, of course, our core interest. But I want your take on how do we balance that in terms of our actions within our borders and then outside, and also in terms of any possibilities of how we can get the region or the international community, particularly the US, involved in this. While, of course, the US troop withdrawal happened, this is something that we're still dealing with. It's something that the UN report talks about how is a potential regional threat. And so that, of course, has its own impact in Pakistan, and there are steps that need to be taken within the country. But how do we compound that with the steps that need to be taken in the region and in partnership with the countries like the US?
Right, Sana, thank you very much for the question. I think that it is of critical import because yesterday Prime Minister of Pakistan also said that till the time we are not done away, we haven't done away with the Khawarij, the country cannot truly progress. So I want to actually first start by addressing the international angle. And I'm not, unlike Faisal, I'm not going to trash talk the Americans or call them thankless. I think that they have repeatedly been grateful, even on withdrawal, repeatedly as we saw statements which were of good gratitude. But having said that, let me also thank President Trump for not only he has this huge pulpit, right? And from there, when he actually spoke, I'm really grateful that he has acknowledged Pakistan and he has also praised Pakistan. Do you understand that in the entire speech, the only country he praised was Pakistan, right? But having said that, then what happened? I'm sure that many of us watched that speech. During that speech, and he is an excellent, a very gifted public speaker. So he paces according to the feedback that comes back from the chamber when he is talking, right? On various occasions, he would praise certain elements and people would stand up and, clap. But he spoke about Pakistan and there's pin drop silence. Then he accelerates to next point and then he keeps on going, right? Why would that happen? And that was a question that I kept on asking myself until I was reminded of my interactions with various American friends who actually point out that Pakistan has been really lagging behind in actually telling its story. On one side, we haven't been able to actually, an average American does not know the kind of sacrifices Pakistan has made. And then compounding on that, we haven't tried properly to lobby either. How much interest we have with the Congress, India's lobby is there and which is very strong. There are umpteen other lobbies, but Pakistan does not seem to be working that hard, unfortunately. So first of all, if you want to, and by the way, this I'm talking about a president who had actually declared terrorism to be over, especially when the armed forces actually killed Baghdadi, the head of ISIS. And their security strategy spoke of this shift that terrorism is now over. Now we are going to look at the great power rivalry or competition. So at this moment, if he wants to help you, we'll have to also help him, right, in helping us. So why not actually, first of all, double down on our efforts to tell our story. Remember, Pakistan used to have a Yam-e-Shoda, which was actually observed with solemnness and a lot of emotion. And then all of a sudden, General Bajwa actually came and he merged that with another, Pakistan Day event, and it was done. Why do we need to actually keep on stopping our story from reaching the outer world? We have to tell the story. 80,000 people dying on your own turf is not a joke, Sana. So we have to, first of all, if you want to, double down on your efforts to tell the story and lobby as well, convince people that Pakistanis are not baby snatching, villains of any story. We are your friends and we have sacrificed a lot. Then we can ask, of course, our Western friends to help us in finishing this war and concluding on our terms. Now, looking at the domestic agenda, we have to actually take special, cognizance of the fact that our heroes, our soldiers are dying every day. They are sacrificing. Yesterday in Banu, they foiled a huge terrorist attack. Today there was one episode in Balochistan as well. Similar activities continue. There are two sides to it, right? On one side is these young soldiers who die. They are our children, Sana. They are not free. Their lives must matter. So we have to find a way to put an end, a permanent end to the menace of terrorism. Similarly, what we need to do is when you talk about the human toll, like a bomb went off in Balochistan and bystanders were killed. Balochistan is also part of Pakistan. These people's blood also matters to us. So we have to actually go back to the drawing board, take our national action plan with us, and talk about the need to improve what is not, where we are lagging behind. Of course, hardening the border, manning the border, I don't think that drones can actually give you, it is a wide space, huge space. So you won't be able to just use only drones. You perhaps will need on ground a very tall fence, a properly manned fence, and then you will need satellite support to keep on monitoring per second and per minute. But domestically, when you talk about the law enforcement agencies, they are doing their job brilliantly, sacrificing and fighting and challenging terrorists daily. But what is happening with the lawmakers? What is happening with the civilian side of the equation? What is happening with all the monies that were pledged that they are going out of, divisible pool, that money is going to go to reconstruction of various places which are badly affected by terrorism. And then you have to ask, why is it that we haven't been able to come up with a convincing, cogent, final argument against the propaganda of terrorists, right? That all of that can happen, and this madness can be put to rest within days, weeks, or perhaps months, but not more than that, if we are willing, because it seems that only armored forces and law enforcement agencies keep on doing their job. The rest of us are sleeping. We can afford to sleep because those heroes are sacrificing. But what does it mean? Should they keep on sacrificing themselves so that we keep on perpetually sleeping, or wake up and save them also? Because they are also very important citizens of this country.
Absolutely. And Brigadier Waqar, I want your take in terms of, while we talk about, of course, the efforts that need to be done at home, there is the continuous threat that comes in from Afghanistan. And we've, of course, had our engagements with the Afghan Taliban regime previously as well. We have, of course, had different aspects with regards to what needs to be done about it. There seems to be certain differences also in terms of the federal and the KP government, for example, in terms of the strategies. But at the same time, we have seen that whatever the interaction or engagement has been with, we still, of course, haven't seen the kind of response that we need. And so in terms of the willingness of the Afghan Taliban regime, or the capacity, or of course the kind of outright support that we see in terms of safe havens, that's a real problem that exists. And of course, there's also the issue of the fact that it's not a stable government in place, it's not a stable country, it's not something that's officially recognized, and that of course adds to the problems as well. So I want your take in terms of what options then are available for Pakistan in terms of its engagement with the Afghan Taliban regime, because while diplomacy and dialogue are essential, what are the options if that is not working out for a long time?
I think things should be moving parallel as far as diplomatic efforts is concerned. Then, of course, is regional pressure by engaging, Central Asian republics, Iran, Pakistan, China, which that we are also doing. As I mentioned that in Moscow format, Turkey was won. But we also see what is happening inside Afghanistan. What's the kind of pressure now building up? Because all, I think, bilateral arrangements, or let's say talks, presenting evidence has been tried out, and despite that, there is a state of denial. not realizing that actually Afghanistan depends a lot on Pakistan for the economy also. So one is of course divide between the people. So we should be basically tackling Afghan people separately and the regime separately. And in case the regime is hostile, as is now I think becoming very clear. Because initially they used to be denial, no, the TTP and these guys are out of our control. They are Pakistan based and there's nothing to do. So even their senior ministers have been doing. But now, as I said, that there are serious divisions within. There is almost kind of resentment by the women folk and even common Afghan, like barber shops are closed. There's no entertainment, and it's more like a rule of jungle. And Afghan people are very intelligent. They can bear it for let's say 1 or 2 years, but ultimately they have to now get up and fight against this ruthless regime. Then comes the Afghan national resistance, which is now picking up. So it means that environment is changing. Yes, US was kind of supporting them with money. This was, I think, acknowledged by the cigar also. But now with Trump coming in, policy is changing because he's going to count every dollar. The region is definitely not in favor of Afghanistan. They have engaged, like Russia, China, Iran. They would like to engage because it's better off than 40 million people of Afghanistan. Also, they can't be abandoned. For Pakistan, I think stakes are very high. So I would say that all the basically the policy which is in vogue should continue, and mainly we have to fight the terrorism inside. And for Taliban, I think they have had enough of warning, enough of talks. In case they behave and they feel that they can live, peacefully in community of nations, good. But in case it continues, then probably we are into a conflict, and we would like to have this regime basically change, and maybe a moderate regime which can live peacefully with the neighbor comes up, and hopefully it would happen. Because I don't think so. One people can be suppressed for so long that you can rule them through the barrel of. Ultimately, they have to feed them. They have to develop. It's 21st century. I'm sure Afghan kids also know how the other nations are doing, and we see what is Afghanistan's future. It's very bleak. So I would say that maximum military pressure within, and in case there is requirement across the border, maybe leave some room for negotiations, but keep the full pressure, diplomatic, informational, and military, and hopefully, I think we'll get the results.
Right. Last question, Brigadier Waqar, with regards to issues of accountability. While we talk about zero tolerance against terrorist activities and terrorist groups, there needs to be zero tolerance in terms of anybody who's actually played a role in enabling the terrorist activities in the country as well. And we've seen that in the previous political regime as well, certain decisions that have, of course, impacted our current situation in terms of the law and order. And so I want your take in terms of what that means in terms of actions that Pakistan can and should be taking, accountability across the board in terms of whatever happens within the country. Is that not something that we need to also focus on?
Definitely, I think when it comes to the frontline provinces like KP and Balochistan, where we have this, I think, menace of terrorism picking up, one is of course make the provincial governments also accountable, and those who are responsible for that wrong policy of trying to mainstream them should be, I think, made accountable. And the other is also that KP government has to now understand. We're still talking of sending some delegates, and we have tried it. But the federal government couldn't see it. How could then there are some elements in, I would say, some religious parties who had some kind of soft corner for that. I think by and large it is gone. We've seen JUI leaders being attacked. We've seen madrasas being attacked. We've seen places of worship and mosques being attacked. So these are not basically, I'll call them, even they're worse than the past. So that's why the term Khawarij. So I think the important thing is to everybody should be now focused. This is our fight, and all those past mistakes should be addressed, and those who were responsible for this lopsided policy be made accountable, and be very clear that this is our war. This is war of KP, this is war of Balochistan and Pakistan, and we can inshallah win it. And there should be no doubt. And I don't think so now people have doubt. Even the religious, I think, segment of society who had some kind of relations are also now getting very clear that this is not Islam, and start attacking people, offering prayer in Ramadan. And so basically they have become a hired gun. So that's why I think on the media, there is a need for an aggressive following of this narrative. And till the time, either they start behaving or this regime crumbles, that should be the ultimate objective.
Right. Thank you very much, Brigadier Waqar,
Thank
for
you.
joining us and being a part of the discussion today. We're now going to move on to our next segment that takes a look on the ways in which U.S. policies with regards to tariffs is impacting its relations with different countries and, of course, the economies of different countries. Most notably, we've seen, of course, China also responding in terms of this being no end in terms of the trade war that has begun. But, of course, we've seen statements coming in from Canada and European states as well that, of course, are going to be impacted as this moves on. And while, of course, there's discussion on what that means for the New World Order, we're going to take a look particularly in terms of the economic situation. And Faisal, I want your take on that first in terms of course, the ways in which we have seen the US-China relationship in particular evolve over time. And now, of course, with the imposition of these tariffs, we've seen a countermeasure move from China as well. And that may not be something that is matching Mr. Trump's move, but I want your perspective in what is the potential of these decisions and how that can actually change the economic situation of different regions of the world, and then, of course, in particular, the US supremacy.
Yes, and obviously when we talk about whatever is going on in between US and China in case of Biden's administration, of course they were discreetly having this economic war going on with trade war going on with the Chinese, but I give credit to Trump. At least he's someone who's open about it. He's coming up with the statements. He's coming up with all of these tariffs. He's increasing the tariffs, and he's openly, obviously, talking about it. And this, to me, I think would have a very reverse kind of impact on the American economy as well. Reason being, it might not affect America as a country, or Trump's administration as an administration, but when it comes to normal, American citizens, of course, they will be feeling a huge impact of that. Reason being, when it comes to, production, when it comes to cost-effective production, nobody can beat China. And the kind of products China has made and China has been, of course, sending into America, that actually gave leverage to normal citizens of America. The things when they went into the markets to buy, it was quite easier for them to buy them, and the consumption was more. But in coming future, what we are going to see with the high tariffs and all, and with the kind of course, the stance which US is going to have on the Chinese. Of course, it might not affect China to an extent, but when it comes to its real effect, that would be on the normal citizens of the US. And to me, I think somewhere down the line they might have to renegotiate about whatever their stance is on China. But when it comes to China itself, I mean, I think the statements coming from Chinese side that they are ready for this trade war, they are of course already braced up, and they have been waiting for this day. And to me, I think this was bound to happen. And when it comes to China itself, China has many more markets. Of course, US is a huge market for them, but when it comes to other markets, they have extended their products to throughout the world. And of course, when it comes to America looking for the tariffs, America, I mean, trying to of course enhance its production and all, everyone knows throughout the world that when it comes to China, China's product are easily accessible, easily buyable as well, because their prices, they are affordable. But when it comes to American product, yes, they might have quality, a very brilliant quality, but when it comes to affordability, that would be a challenge. And to me, I think when we talk about the Chinese stance on their economy, probably it would not hurt their economy to an extent. But when it comes to America, of course, America would be losing a lot in terms of whatever the statements which we were hearing in recent past, in terms of like there are many investors who want to invest. Yes, Farrukh highlighted yesterday that suddenly more than $1 trillion are going to be, of course, invested in there. 1.7 trillion dollars are going to be invested in there. Well, the pledges are made, but what if after all of these statements which are coming from the Trump side, maybe all of them investors, like we discussed yesterday, and Dr. Karl highlighted it as well, it can be a challenge for all of these investors. It can consider, they can consider it as a deterrence that there is no future in terms of investments in America. And why? Because when they are having this kind of stance, of course they might deter not only the European countries, but rest of the world as well, in terms of their relations, economic relations with the countries. So if they are coming up with these kind of statements, ultimately, I mean, the people or the investors who want to send in FDIs to America and invest in there, they might be deterred as well. As Dr. Karl highlighted yesterday, and I believe that he was perfectly fine about it, that maybe all of these investors, they might not bring in all the investments at the same time. They might try with the 5% of the investment, the claims they have been making. They might turn up with 2% of it just to test the waters, how I can get some benefit out of it. So I think this is the way forward. To me, the kind of stance which is an open stance from the American side, which is an open ultimatum for the whole world, including China, I think it would have some kind of a backlash, and that backlash would force them to renegotiate.
Right, and Farrukh, I want your perspective on that, and add to that whether or not this can also lead to the Asian markets actually developing for themselves, and in terms of the ways that we see perhaps more potential of indigenization, and then moving forward in terms of developing our own creative economy. Of course, Pakistan is also one of the countries in the region. We have our own close ties with China. How does that impact us in the larger picture, and of course in the ways that China, as of course a big power, can also contribute towards the region and of course Asian markets in particular?
Thank you very much, Sana. It might surprise many that I'm going to agree on one point, and that is that these tariffs are not going to actually affect China much, because China, of course, has huge business and it has this penetration which is remarkable, and now its product is also great. But regarding other things, first of all, before I actually start with the rebuttal, I wanted to actually share a little bit of experience and advice, Sana, and that is for you. You start a discussion by bringing up New World Order.
Yeah.
So a couple of days ago, and this actually shows you Google's censorship. Yeah. I made a video for my YouTube channel called Trump World Order. It had no word new in it. It had no reference to the international conspiracy theory regarding the so-called New World Order. But after it was released, they have slapped a disclaimer on it that New World Order is a conspiracy theory. Right. So I just wanted to tell you that if you are going to talk about the world order, let us talk about use some other word, not new. But regarding this investment business that my brother here was talking about, let me be very clear. Apple has actually not only pledged, it has started buying properties to start the business there. 500 billions are there. Keep counting. SoftBank, Japanese company, is it going to be deterred because of what is happening with the other countries? No, it is not. 100 billion on it, 200 billion on its own, and then along with Oracle, OpenAI, 500 billion in total. This is another. Then Taiwanese company has only yesterday, pledged, not pledged actually, they are going to create semiconductors in America. So it is happening because of one reason. American president is using tariffs for two purposes. One, bear in mind all of these tariffs are fungible. They can be negotiated anytime provided the needs are met. So it is a bargaining chip and it will continue. Then it is also being used for parity's sake. For example, he brought up the fact that India actually charges over 100% tariffs on cars, American cars. and then we don't charge them. So reciprocity is going to be there. I said too, there's a third one also.
Okay.
And the third one is that eventually he wants everyone to come to America and manufacture there. And there is some logic to it. Otherwise, what is happening? The Chinese products are very cost effective, and they kill at the local market. So with tariffs, they want to modulate and they want to create some kind of equilibrium between the two sides, right? But having said that, remember, it was Donald Trump who not only reached out to North Korea, Russia also, but with China, they had a very good chemistry. And we saw President Donald Trump actually negotiating the first round of FTA. So I think that eventually it is going to lead to FTA, and America and China can actually converse in this manner. Like, for example, they said that when a kid in Montessori is pulling a girl's ponytail, it is because he does not know how to tell her that he likes her, right? So here too, these kind of mechanisms are essentially negotiation tactics, and I'm sure that things will settle down. But regarding India, look at the impact. American liquor, there was 150% tariff in India on American liquor, right? And after Modi ji went back, they have slashed it and brought it below 100%. So every Indian bureau should be very happy that at least Donald Trump has accomplished this, and they can actually drink the Vilayati daru. But apart from that, I think that these are interesting times. Keep studying, and in coming days, you will see that there is not going to be a trade war.
Yeah.
It is just going to be negotiation, and then the new world will settle down, not out there, yeah,
Right.
but it will actually come into equilibrium.
Right. Thank you, Farrukh, and thank you, Faisal, for joining us and sharing your valuable input. That's all that we have time for. And of course, we'll be here to talk more about other issues. But tomorrow, that's all we have from the show today. See you tomorrow.